Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be a bit of a discussion. I saw someone the other day talking about unbiased book ratings, and I had a lot of thoughts, so I thought, why not sit down and make a video about it? Obviously, this is just my opinion, so feel free to comment down below if you agree or disagree or have any other thoughts on it. And just so we're on the same page, I'm not talking about problematic biases like homophobia, racism, transphobia, stuff like that. That's more than bias. I'm talking about decent people with honest intentions who are trying to rate books with integrity. So I firmly believe that there is no such thing as an unbiased book rating or book review. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because being biased isn't inherently bad or problematic. It doesn't just mean having an unjustified opinion or an unfair advantage or disadvantage that's clouding your thoughts. Bias also includes preference, habit, just what you naturally gravitate towards. A lot of times with books, it's, I like this thing, and I know that that book has this thing, so I'm already inclined to enjoy it. And sometimes it's the opposite. I usually hate this thing, and I know it's a key part of this book, so now I'm going into it with a mindset of, okay, prove me wrong. That's being biased. Obviously, reading taste is subjective. We all like different things, we all dislike different things, we all read looking for different things. So if reading is subjective, ratings have to be subjective. I have seen people try to argue that their ratings are objective anyways, being like, well, I have this very strict formula and I rate it based off of these measurable qualities, not just whether I liked it or what my favorite things are. And no matter the formula, no matter how scientific and exact you try to be, it will always be based on what you like, what you think is good or bad. And it has to be, because there is no objective good or bad when it comes to books. Otherwise, everyone on the planet would have the same favorite book and we would just all agree. And think about how many people do you know that even have the same top 3 favorite books. So no matter how justified your rating is, it is still your opinion. And plenty of people will have a different opinion because they have different preferences and biases than you do. And that's fine. You could say that a plot sucks because it's really cliche and formulaic. Maybe you read that trope a lot and you're sick of it and you don't think that this execution was as satisfying as the last 10 times you encountered it. But somebody else could think it's amazing and mind-blowing because they've never read that trope before. You could say a book is great because it's innovative and unique. That made it unpredictable and fascinating because you've never read anything like that before. But somebody else who reads that kind of thing all the time, maybe they think that it's kind of dry, kind of bland, nothing special. You could say that a character is unrealistic and their actions make no sense, based off of your expectations for how people usually act in your experience. But another person could think that it reminds them so much of their cousin, who would definitely do that exact same thing, and maybe that's their favorite character. Even something like being poorly edited, bad grammar, typos, stuff like that, isn't objectively bad necessarily. Maybe it's a stylistic choice that's endearing to some people. Maybe because of your knowledge and understanding of grammar in whatever language you're reading in makes it really jarring to see typos and weird things like that. But to someone else, they're just here for a good time. They don't really care about all of that little stuff. Maybe they don't notice or care about the grammar mistakes. It doesn't really impact their understanding or enjoyment at all. I'll admit that one's a bit of a stretch, but you know what I mean? There are so many little things that you could love and someone else could hate, and it completely depends on your own personal preference. Like I said, being biased isn't necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean that your ratings are dishonest or invalid or unethical. You can still try to be as honest and fair as you can. You can still discuss what you loved or hated or what really made the book or kind of ruined it for you. That's the point of book reviews. They're not meant to be objective and unbiased. You're telling people how much you enjoyed the book, how good you think the book is. That's why, honestly, I don't really put any stock in just a rating on their own if I don't know the person. If it's a review where they break down the reason for their rating and all of that, then maybe. Then I can get an idea of that person's preferences, see if they align with mine. Maybe I see a 5-star review for a romance book, and they say that it's because it's the best and spiciest romance they've ever read. And maybe I prefer closed-door romance, so I know that that's not a 5-star for me. Or maybe somebody rates a horror novel a 1-star because they think that it wasn't scary or gory or anything like that. But maybe I'm feeling like a scaredy cat at the moment, so I just want to dip my toes into horror, so I'll still give that one a try. If I just see a random stranger rating a book 2 stars, no context, I don't know their reading habits, anything like that, that tells me nothing because it's a stranger's subjective opinion based on criteria that I don't know. And speaking of strangers and their ratings, let's talk about overall ratings on like Goodreads, Storygraph, stuff like that. Because a book's average rating will always be inherently flawed no matter what. Even if there was such thing as an unbiased review, there are so many different ways and methods to come up with a rating. Even if you have 100 people who all feel the exact same way about a book, you're not going to get the same rating 100 times. Some of them will rate it purely based off how much they enjoyed it. Some of them will compare it to other books and see where it measures up and get a rating based on that. Some people will give a 5-star to every book they love. Some people will reserve 5 stars for books that they think are pretty much perfect. Some people will round up, some people will round down, some people will kind of decide in the moment which way they think it's leaning. So how could an overall rating be accurate if there isn't even a standardized and consistent way we're using to determine that rating? The thing is, aside from some marketing, business stuff, a book's overall rating doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't tell the reader anything useful. It doesn't mean a book is good or bad. It doesn't show whether a book is successful or not. It doesn't tell you as a reader if you will or will not enjoy the book. It's just the average opinion of users who are on that platform. That's it. And some books really blow up on social media, and a lot of people who see those books are people who are already on Goodreads, Storygraph, etc., and are more likely to rate it. And some books are incredibly popular, but most of their readers aren't online or just don't rate books. And the actual rating, like the number itself, on its own doesn't say anything. If 10,000 people read a book and they all love it, half of them rated a 4-star and half of them rated a 5-star, it's still going to have a lower rating than a book that has 3 ratings but all 3 are a 5 out of 5. Does that necessarily tell you which book is better? No. Also, there's a big difference between, let's say, a 3-star book that everybody is rating 3 stars, meaning it's mid, it's average, it's nothing special, it doesn't stand out, versus a 3-star book that is 50-50 split 1 stars and 5 stars. Because that means it's polarizing. You're either going to love it or hate it. It makes people passionate regardless of which way they land. Those are 2 very different reading experiences. And sometimes the whole thing is bullshit. The 6th Song of Ice and Fire book by George R.R. Martin right now has almost 15,000 reviews on Goodreads, and it is sitting at a 4.39 average. That book isn't written yet. Every single one of those reviews is complete garbage, is complete bias that has nothing to do with the book itself. So even though I feel like it's important, especially if you have any sort of platform, to be honest about book ratings, book reviews, you should try to be as fair as you can. At the end of the day, book ratings are so wild, unpredictable, meaningless, that I don't think we have to stress ourselves out that much about being completely objective with something that cannot be objective. That being said though, when is bias a problem? Where's the line between integrity and just general untrustworthiness? I would say anytime that you know that your bias is preventing you from giving an honest opinion. Maybe you know the author and you're afraid to hurt their feelings. Maybe this is your mom's favorite book and you don't have it in your heart to give it a low rating. Maybe the main character has the exact same name as your really horrible ex, so no matter how well written the book is, you're gonna hate every single thing they do. If you feel like you can't give a rating that feels honest to you, don't rate the book. Also, if there's any kind of gain from it. If somebody is paying you for a review, that's ethically tricky. That business relationship might make you feel pressured to lean a certain way, have certain opinions. If there's any sort of outside incentive to your rating, I feel like that should be avoided. And I just feel like paid reviews, sketchy in general. On that note, ARCs are different than a paid review. If you don't know, ARC is advanced reader copy, basically an unfinished version of the book that's given away for free before it comes out, so that there is some reviews and hype before the release date. Hi Ripley! Welcome! With ARCs, you're not being paid to review it. There shouldn't be any money exchanged. It's just a chance to read a usually unfinished version of the book for free before it comes out, with the assumption that you will then leave a fair and honest review. And when it's an ARC, you are supposed to disclose that in your review. It's usually just a line at the very beginning saying, I was sent this book for free by the author or publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review. In the US, that is under their FTC guidelines, Federal Trade Commission. One of their rules is that you have to disclose anytime you're reviewing any product that you were sent for free. Honestly, I don't think an ARC review carries any more bias than anything else. Sure, you might be more lenient on a book if you didn't have to spend your own hard-earned money on it, but that's also the case for library books or books you borrow from a friend. I think that as long as you don't feel pressured to adjust your review one way or the other, which you shouldn't, just because it's an ARC, I don't think there's any issue with that. I think a gray area though is DNFs, books you did not finish. I think that whether it's fair to rate a DNF really depends on why you DNF'd it and how far you got. If you trudged through 75% of the book and were miserable the whole time and you just can't force yourself to read that last 25%, I think it's totally fair for you to rate that book, because even if the ending is the best 25% you've ever read in your life, you still had to trudge through 75% of something you hated, and I think that your opinion can be fully formed by then. But if you just read like a chapter and you decided, oh, it's not really what I thought, or it's not for me, I wouldn't rate that, because I feel like you don't know enough about the book, unless there is something that happened in those first few pages that is so horrible that the book is completely unsalvageable. I don't feel like that's a fair rating for the most part. I'll be honest, I almost never DNF books, and I don't think I've ever rated one that I have DNF'd. I usually just leave a review and I say in it, DNF'd at this page or this percent of the way through or whatever, and then I explain why I gave up on it and my thoughts up until that point. But I don't usually assign it a rating because I don't know, I just don't. The final iffy one that I see a lot is whether it's okay to rate a book if you personally know the author. As somebody who's part of AuthorTube but also makes BookTube videos, I have a decent amount of experience with this because I'm a writer. I've made a lot of other friends who are also writers. And sometimes my friends get to achieve their dream and release their books, and it's amazing. And obviously I am gonna have bias there. When it comes to a friend's book, my initial feeling before I even start reading is going to skew positive. Because I already have love and admiration for the author, I've probably been listening to my friend talk about this story and seen their passion and watched the book come to life. I've probably been excited for this book for years. So that will initially make me feel more positive. But expectations are a double-edged sword. I may have fallen in love with the book before I even read it, and obviously I assume that all of my friends are talented because of course they are. But if the book isn't good, I'm now going to be twice as disappointed. Maybe I've been listening to my friend talk up their main character forever and I already am so excited to meet them, I have this connection. And then I start reading their POV and realize they are super annoying. Maybe my friend has a great sense of humor, so I'm expecting the book to be hilarious, and it turns out their writing style is really, really dry. If my hopes are already so high and it falls short, I'm gonna have a much more negative feeling about it than if I would have gone in with more tempered expectations. So there is definitely a bias to it, but it can be a both positive or a negative one. The way that I normally navigate it is I always disclose from the beginning that I'm friends with the author, the same way that I would with an ARC review. I just kind of say up front, I'm friends with the author, I love them, I paid for this book, whatever. And then I'm usually more thorough than I even normally would be in the review. Because if I loved a book, I don't want someone to just look at the high rating and think, oh, well, they're just rating it this way because you're friends. If I think the book is amazing, I'm going to over-justify it because I want you to know how amazing I think the book is. But if I don't like it, I kind of want to defend it a little bit and say, hey, I'm not just being harsh on this because I'm trying to overcompensate for the fact that it's my friend. I'll say, you know, this, and this were really well done, but the characters were flat and the ending felt rushed. And then I'll kind of go into that. Because either way, I want another reader to know why I either liked or didn't like the book so that they can decide if they like the book. There's nothing to gain by lying or being dishonest about a book rating because that doesn't help anyone. If I'm saying that this book is perfect and now other people are going to be reading it because of that opinion and they realize, oh, actually this sucks, now I'm just making other people disappointed in my friend. Like, that's shitty. But there are so many different things that will make me feel biased towards a book. If it has my favorite trope, if it has my least favorite trope, if it's a book in a series that I already love, I'm probably already in love with the characters and the story, so I'm probably gonna like it more. If the cover is really beautiful, if the font is really nice, if it has those like ripped edges, I'm probably gonna like it less. If I'm reading it on audiobook, I'm probably gonna be less invested just because I have a harder time focusing on audiobooks versus reading physically. There are so many little things that will influence my opinion one way or the other, that it's impossible to cut all of that out, because at that point, what am I even talking about? And if I ever felt for any reason that I couldn't be honest, or that I was adjusting my rating because of any outside reason, I would just not rate that book. Because in the end, you don't have to rate anything you don't want to. Even if you rate every single other book, even if you have a platform, even if it's an arc and people are assuming you're going to rate a book, you don't have to. Maybe you do have a platform, but you feel like there's some sort of conflict of interest, so you don't want to hurt your integrity and your audience by giving a review of something that you don't feel comfortable with. Maybe there's a personal reason that you just don't want to talk about. Maybe you just feel weird about it. Maybe you just don't feel like rating a book. You get to decide what you rate and don't rate, regardless of what your normal rating habits are. For me, I don't rate or publicly review nonfiction about groups or cultures that I don't belong to. I am there to listen and learn, not assign them a number based off of my irrelevant opinion on their facts, because that feels icky to me. I also don't rate children's books, like picture books, because I usually don't have enough specific thoughts to have anything to say, and I'm not the target audience, so my vague, I don't know, it was fine I guess, isn't going to help anybody. At the end of the day, a book rating is a meaningless and subjective score that just serves to quickly tell people how much you enjoyed a book. Do whatever feels right to you. But like I said, let me know what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, if you had something to add, if you think that I missed something, if you want to kind of jump on and piggyback off something else I said. I would love to read your comments. But that is going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please hit the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my videos. I post new videos once a week, usually reading or writing related. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!